Hop in and get ready to travel back in time as we take a closer look at some of the weirdest, most baffling things from the past. From super odd gadgets that seemed like good ideas at the time to fashion choices that make you scratch your head, these relics of history will have you thankful for the modern world we live in. Today we're diving into 15 things from the past that, trust us, you definitely wouldn't want to experience again. Let's see just how far we've come. Number 15. The rotary dial phone. Today, everyone has a smartphone. Well, don't ask which one. But there was a time when making a call was a whole different experience. Before touchscreens and instant messaging, people relied on the rotary dial phone. Now picture this, a time when dialing a number wasn't as simple as tapping a screen. Instead, you had to insert your finger into a circular hole, spin it around, and wait for the dial to return to its starting point. Sounds like a mini workout, right? But that's how we used to connect with one another in the early 20th century. Patented in 1891, the rotary dial was a game changer, doing away with operators who once by hand connected calls. Instead, each number was dialed by turning the wheel, a method that was oddly satisfying once you got the hang of it. Sure, there were some regional quirks in how different countries used pulse systems, but it worked. For decades, the rotary phone was a staple in homes and offices, but now it's just a thing of the past. Number 14. The cook and wash refrigerator. Imagine a single appliance that promised to be the ultimate kitchen multitasker, combining a fridge, sink, and stove in one compact unit. Sounds great, isn't it? This was the cook and wash refrigerator, introduced in 1952. Advertised as the future of kitchen efficiency, it aimed to save space and time by merging multiple functions into a single, sleek design. Unfortunately, it didn't live up to the hype. The fridge section failed to keep things cool, and the sink was deemed too small for practical use. Despite its innovative concept, the cook and wash was widely criticized for trying to do too much, without excelling at any one task. There were concerns about safety as well, with the stove and sink placed dangerously close to the fridge's motor. While it might have seemed like a clever idea at the time, this appliance was quickly abandoned, and few were sold. It's a reminder that bigger isn't always better, and sometimes simpler is smarter. Number 13. Radium toothpaste. In the early 20th century, there was a bizarre trend that promised to revolutionize personal care: radioactive toothpaste. Known as Damit, this German-made toothpaste contained thorium, a radioactive substance. It was marketed as a miracle product that could charge your cells with new energy, allegedly healing gum diseases and even making your teeth resistant to bacteria. People were enamored with the idea that radioactivity could cure ailments, leading to products like radioactive water jugs, toys, and even butter. While the toothpaste was thought to polish teeth and help with dental health, the harmful effects of radiation were completely unknown at the time. Today, we look back in disbelief, imagining the dangers of brushing our teeth with a radioactive substance. It's a perfect example of how people's fascination with miracle cures can sometimes lead to dangerous and even deadly choices. Number 12. Early life jackets. Life jackets have evolved drastically over the years, but the first versions were far from the reliable safety devices we know today. In the early 20th century, life jackets were made using rubber and batteries, and even included systems that could send SOS signals. These early vests were bulky and uncomfortable, but at least they tried to make water rescue efforts more effective. One particularly interesting design was the cork vest created by Captain Ward of the Royal National Lifeboat Institution. It wasn't until the 1950s that significant changes were made to life jackets, following the sinking of the Carl D. Bradley in 1953, which revealed that many life jackets were prone to failure. This led to redesigns to ensure they would stay on even when the wearer was unconscious. Today's life jackets are much more comfortable and functional, But these early versions were essential stepping stones toward the safety standards we take for granted. Number 11. The Ice Cube Mask. Back in 1947, Hollywood's elite had a bizarre beauty secret: the Ice Cube Mask. Created by makeup artist Max Factor Jr., this experimental mask was designed to cool actresses on hot days without ruining their carefully crafted makeup. The mask was essentially a cloth with actual ice cubes placed directly on the face, targeting puffiness and hangovers without disturbing their flawless appearances. While cold therapy has long been used for reducing swelling and tightening skin, the idea of putting ice cubes directly on your face might sound a bit extreme, and frankly, uncomfortable. The mask's cooling effect was supposed to reduce inflammation and shrink pores, but its odd appearance raised eyebrows. While it may have been a quick fix for Hollywood stars, it's hard to imagine this becoming a mainstream skincare trend. Today, we've thankfully moved beyond this chilly method of beautification. Number 10. Ancient snow goggles. Long before modern sunglasses, ancient hunters in cold climates faced a unique challenge: snow blindness. To protect their eyes from the sun's glare off the snow, indigenous groups like the Inuit and Alutiiq created snow goggles around 2,000 years ago. Made from bone, ivory, or wood, these goggles had small slits that reduced the amount of ultraviolet light reaching the eyes, preventing painful sunburns and vision loss. Unlike today's sunglasses, which provide full coverage, these goggles allow wearers to spot prey by cutting down on visual distortion. The design was incredibly effective and has been discovered at archaeological sites across the Arctic, showing just how advanced these ancient cultures were in crafting practical tools for survival. While the materials have changed over time, the basic concept of slitted goggles remains remarkably unchanged, proving that sometimes the simplest designs are the best. Number 9. The typewriter. The typewriter. A tool so iconic it could probably type its own autobiography. In 1868, Christopher Latham Sholes, a printer and journalist from Wisconsin, decided that writing by hand was for the birds and patented the first typewriter. Sure, the idea had been floating around for decades, but Sholes' version, with its odd circular basket of type arms, was the real game changer. If you were brave enough to use it, you had to lift the carriage to see your work. And no, it wasn't some medieval torture device. It was a revolutionary invention that made typing faster and, let's face it, much less painful than penmanship. Fast forward to 1961, when IBM introduced the electric typewriter with a spherical type ball, and suddenly office work was a whole lot easier. So next time you bang out a memo on your keyboard, think of the typewriter, the ancestor that made us all look way cooler when we typed hello on the page. Number 8. The amphibious bicycle. Do you think bikes are fun? Well, in the 1800s, some inventive minds decided to take cycling to the next level by creating the amphibious bicycle. This genius machine could ride on both the land and water, because apparently regular bicycles just weren't exciting enough. Some versions came with airfield floats, others had fan blades to propel them across water, and all of them screamed, "Look at me, I'm way cooler than your average two-wheeler." There were even models that could be deflated for easy transport. Now these amphibious bikes were great for those who just couldn't decide whether to ride across a lake or a riverbank. However, despite their ingenuity, these bikes never really took off. But if you're ever stranded between a lake and a bike path, just know someone thought of this. You know, in case you ever wanted to cycle and sail at the same time. Number 7. Solar heating. Long before we all became obsessed with solar panels, the concept of solar heating was a thing, and it was pretty ahead of its time. Back in the 1930s, architects like George Fred Keck realized that if the sun could bake your skin on a hot day, maybe it could do a little heating in the winter too. Keck's House of Tomorrow, built for the 1933 Century of Progress exposition, was like the solar-powered dream house of the future. The house had walls and floors that soaked up the sun's rays, keeping it warm without a single electric bill. In fact, the workers were so comfortable in the house that they wore only shirts on chilly winter days, thanks to the passive solar heat. The future was looking bright, literally. Of course, it took a few decades for solar energy to catch on properly, but Keck was way ahead of his time. So, the next time you feel the sun on your face, remember, it's not just for selfies. It could be heating your house, too. Number 6. The Dimple Maker. Ever wished you had dimples like the cute kids in your favorite movies? Well, back in 1936, Isabella Gilbert introduced the Dimple Maker, a device designed to give anyone that perfect, adorable dimpled smile. Think of it as the beauty trend of the century, but with a side of medieval torture. This gadget, which looked like it was made for someone who really didn't like their cheeks, was worn tightly on the face, pressing and prodding to supposedly create dimples. The only problem? It didn't actually work, at all. But hey, it was marketed like it could create a new set of facial features. Some even claimed it could give you cancer, but let's not take that too seriously. Still, it was a thing for a while, mostly because everyone loves a good beauty shortcut. The Dimple Maker is a reminder that sometimes the quest for perfection leads to some truly bizarre inventions. Number 5. The 1920s swim masks. In the roaring 20s, swimming was a whole different ballgame. Sure, people dove into the waves, but they were also trying to dodge the sun's harmful rays and, let's face it, jellyfish stings. Enter the 1920s swim mask, a quirky invention that covered your whole face like a bizarre snorkel mask, but with far more flair. Unlike today's streamlined goggles, these masks were designed with a hefty dose of practicality in mind, protecting swimmers from burns and stings while adding an air of mystery to the scene. Made with simple materials, glass lenses, and rubber or textile straps, these masks made sure you could see underwater while keeping the sun's rays at bay. What's more, those little water droplets on the surface. They weren't just decorative, they acted as natural lenses, boosting your underwater vision. Though the fashion was modest, think full coverage swimwear with socks, these masks were more than just swim gear. They were a bold statement of their time. Number 4. The tape recorder. Before Spotify or even CDs, there was the tape recorder, a game changer in audio technology. The first tape recorders were no small feat. They began as mechanical beasts, think beeswax-coated paper and complex film materials, before finally evolving into the sleek, magnetic, tape-driven devices we recognize today. By the 1930s and 40s, German engineers perfected magnetic tape, leading to the creation of the magnetophone, which forever changed how we recorded and listened to sound. The device could capture audio in ways no one thought possible, giving rise to the modern music industry. But using it wasn't for the faint of heart. To operate the magnetophone, users had to manually thread the magnetic tape, adjust settings for optimal sound quality, and maintain the machine. It was a wild ride of trial and error, but it worked, and paved the way for everything from modern music production to that very first mixtape. Number 3. The Isolator Helmet. Imagine a helmet designed to shut out the world entirely. Crafted by Hugo Gorn Beck in 1925, the Isolator helmet was conceived as a tool to enhance focus and productivity by isolating its wearer from distractions. Its original wooden felt design featured a narrow slit for vision, 3 glass panes for looking outside, and a breathing baffle that allowed for air intake. The helmet blocked out sounds, creating an almost meditative space. Yet, as effective as it was at eliminating noise, prolonged use could make the wearer drowsy. To counter this, oxygen tanks were added, ensuring the user could breathe easily. Despite its strange appearance and the discomfort it sometimes causes, the Isolator was promoted as an essential tool for the modern distracted mind. It even made the cover of Science and Invention magazine in 1925. Today, however, this once innovative invention is seen as a curious oddity, embodying a vision of isolation that feels eerie by modern standards. Number 2. The beauty micrometer. In the 1930s, a visionary invention was born from the world of film, the beauty micrometer. Developed by cosmetic guru Max Factor, this peculiar device was designed to refine the art of makeup, helping actors achieve flawless appearances on the big screen. The micrometer, a metal contraption crafted with flexible strips, was placed around the face, adjusting to its contours. With adjustable screws, it allowed the user to precisely measure facial features, guiding makeup artists to perfect their craft. While it never caught on in mainstream beauty salons or Hollywood, its uniqueness captured the imagination of a few. The idea was simple, yet revolutionary. Use technology to measure and perfect beauty in the same way engineers measure machinery. Despite the micrometer's short-lived popularity and the mystery of its sole surviving prototype, it remains an interesting footnote in the history of beauty and film, where technology and artistry briefly collided in pursuit of perfection. Number 1. The Vibrafinger. In the 1950s, a quirky invention made its way into the world of personal care. The Vibrafinger, a curious device marketed as a gum massager. It promised to invigorate the gums, strengthen teeth, and make your mouth feel fresh like never before. Powered by electricity, the Vibrafinger was designed to be plugged into a socket, with users gently massaging their gums for about 60 seconds after brushing. Advertised as hygienic and non-toxic, the tool was endorsed by some dentists and promised to prevent loose teeth and promote healthy gums. However, despite its bold claims, skepticism surrounded it, with many questioning its effectiveness. Over time, it faded from popularity, leaving behind a strange legacy of an era when consumers were eager to embrace the next big thing in health and wellness, no matter how odd it seemed. Now, we know what you're thinking, but forget that image of a buzzing finger. If you learned anything new, be sure to like and subscribe for more amazing content like this. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you soon.